So, Doug Thompson, where is he? Stand up. Richard Possum. They need to be recognized real quick. They came to me about a month ago and said, Kevin, keep standing, Doug. Kevin, we need to do something to support the president. And I'm like, I'm all for it. And so this was their idea. The name came from Miss Lauren here. It's not often that a 5'10", 100-pound woman drives a guy out of 5'foot, 100-pound woman drives a man out of the presidential race, which she did. I mean, after she stood up to him in Aurora, I don't think he went anywhere where another woman wasn't standing in his face saying, look, you can't do this to us. It was fantastic. So I'm so proud to call her my friend, and I'm proud that she's going to be here to speak today. So awesome. Rose Pugliese. You know, and it's great. This is, when I ran for state board in 2017, my idea was, you know, if we complain so much on the West Slope here about not having representation, we better be ready to lead. Well, we're seeing the West Slope lead. Lauren, and then Rose. National popular vote. We're going to get a chance to vote on that next year. Because of Rose's efforts, and it is fantastic, and that's what leadership is. Leadership does. Leadership doesn't speak, doesn't call committees, they do. And so I'm proud of her. Next, on my right-hand side is Michael Day, leader of the deplorables in 2016. And a current county commissioner candidate, and we're going to hear from him a little bit later as well. On my left, you all know him. So we'll just go to the next guy. Ray Scott, who was the Trump campaign chairman for Western Colorado in 2016. Next to him, Cody Davis. Here's what I'm excited about, okay? I'm an old fart. I don't need to be doing this anymore. My wife agrees. She goes, honey, why are you doing all this? Because I love it, but look at the youth. That's my youth, not you. Everybody has a definition of hell. My definition of hell is 1.5 months in the truck with Ray Scott. At least it's not falling out, Michael. I mean, mine went gray and fell out, okay? Right, I'm like, there should be a law that says either you go gray or you go bald, not both. I agree. So we have great leadership that you're going to hear from today. Folks, if we don't get out and work hard in this election, we could lose it. But I'm here to tell you there is so much hope in this country right now. Look at what President Trump has done. Look at it. Lowest unemployment in years. Lowest unemployment for African Americans ever. Lowest unemployment for Hispanics ever. Lowest unemployment for women ever. They're breaking the glass ceiling. And he works for the American people. You know, and I hear all the time, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to get this group. We need to talk to the people who he's put back to work. That's the people that are going to re-elect Mr. Trump. Our president is doing a fantastic job. And oh my God, it's a Scott Tipton sighting. Welcome, Congressman Tipton, come on up. The reason I'm talking so much is I promised him first shot because he's got to be back in Durango this afternoon. And it's a long drive, and we know how hard it is. And so we really appreciate him coming up for this. And he's going to be our first speaker today. He was elected to Congress in 2010. I know because I worked on that campaign. And we upset the Democrat who controlled that seat. And he was outspent, I think, about 5-1. And came through, and he's been doing a great job for us in Congress. I'm glad that he's here today, so I'm not going to bother with the introduction. You all know him, Scott Tipton, our Congressman.
after listening to the media, it was great to drive up and be able to see some Trump signs. You know, I have the distinct pleasure this morning to be able to extend to you greetings from the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Well, as many of you may well know, I had the honor of having the request of the President for myself and also for Congressman Lamborn to be able to serve as the honorary co-chairs for the Trump campaign. But this is just how important this event is. I had a call just a few days ago from Mick Mulvaney, the President's Chief of Staff, inviting us up to actually Camp David to be able to be there today. For Gene and I, who, by the way, I'm proud to be able to have my bride of 37 years now. But we passed on to the President's Chief of Staff that we can do better work right here. Many of us remember just a few years ago when the President was running the rally that was in Grand Junction. An unbelievable number of people, 20,000+ people showed up to be able to hear somebody that wasn't going to stand up for big government, wasn't going to stand up for business as usual, but was going to stand up for people that worked for a living, people that loved their families, people that loved the Constitution, people that loved the Bill of Rights, and believe that they need to be enforced. Let me give you just a little background on what it's like to be in Washington. That's one of the questions that I consistently get. As we started this congressional term, they always have the rules of the House that are going to be established and they're passed by a majority. One of the proposed rules was to be able to eliminate, when we swear in a witness for testimony, the words, "So help me God." You know, if you look right above the Speaker's head in the House of Representatives, you see the words, "In God we trust." God has not forgotten the United States, but if we forget God, we as a country will pay the price. We need to be standing behind separation of church and state, but it's to keep the state out of religion, not religion out of the state. And then, just to be able to give you a little background, see one of my best friends, Scott McGinnis, who had the privilege to be able to represent us. Scott, thank you for all of your work.
Hang in there.
Well, I sit on the committee, and this gives you just a little bit of an idea of what you have to be able to deal with. The chair of my committee is Maxine Waters. Sitting on that committee is Congresswoman Presley. Sitting on that committee is Congresswoman Tlaib. Sitting on that committee is Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. This is the world that we now live in. But those are the drivers of the show. I'll remind you, well, you don't need to remind you. Virtually the day after the election, Maxine Waters was calling for this president's impeachment. To be able to remove this man. Let me tell you, the biggest challenge that Donald Trump really faces, just being able to get support to fulfill the agenda that he laid out. This is a man who just said, we're going to change the method of doing business in Washington, D.C. Let's look really at those results. Just came out with the unemployment figures just the other day, 3.6% in this country. We have more jobs now available than there are people to be able to fill those jobs. Look across all demographics, women's employment, black employment, Hispanic employment in this country. Record levels are going on. The president negotiated the USMCA to be able to deal with our two largest trading partners. It's not China's our largest trading partner, it's Mexico and it is Canada. That bill will pass if Nancy Pelosi will just put it on the floor of the House of Representatives. This is a president who vowed to be able to reduce regulations. And let me remind you what happened before the Democrats took control of the House of Representatives in this last election. We have passed tax reform for the first time in 30 years in this country. This put money back in the pockets of the hard-working people who actually earn those dollars. We'd also passed 16 congressional review acts to be able to roll back regulations which were impeding our ability to be able to compete, to be able to create jobs, to be able to pay people more in this country. Those were promises made and promises kept. And by the way, out of the House of Representatives at least, we passed repeal and replace of Obamacare. And unfortunately, that bill did not make it through the Senate. But in the tax bill, we eliminated the provision requiring by law that you buy insurance that you may not want or do not need. So this is what we're facing right now. We have a Congress that's effectively being run by Speaker Ocasio-Cortez that is driving the agenda. You've heard of the new Green Deal. I think when this first came out, many of us thought it was simply laughable. Who could believe this? Well, let me ask you this. Who could believe that we have an avowed socialist running for president of the United States, virtually at the top of the polls? They all are. You bet they are. That is what we are facing right now. We need to take this seriously. With this new Green Deal, I'm talking to some small producers right here in Mesa County that are picking up and relocating some businesses, moving jobs out of our communities. Their goal is to be able to tell us what type of transportation that we're going to have, what energy sources we can use. You don't want to work? Doesn't matter. We're going to pay you a wage. That's their idea. Well, if you've got a little memory like I do, I think that was tried once. It was called the Soviet Union, and it did not work out well. We have to stand behind Donald Trump in this election. We just have. We just cast a vote.
We just registered to vote.
Just let's take a vote then. We'll take that. We just had a vote, as I know you know, this past week in Congress. That was a vote that we should not have had to have cast. But for the Speaker to say they were going to start with their official impeachment inquiry. I voted no. Every Republican colleague voted no, and 2 Democrats voted no. Now let me tell you what the inquiry is going to do. I'll ask you, should Adam Schiff be able to hold closed-door meetings in a skiff in Washington, D.C.? No. They're holding them today. You don't know what's going on in there. I don't know what's going on in there. The American people don't know what's going on in there. What do they have to hide? What do they not want us to know? The truth. You know, we've got Adam Schiff releasing just parts and pieces of what they would like us to be able to hear. That's right, in many cases. They're determining what the American people are hearing. Probably like me, I'm listening to Fox News driving in today, and they were saying, well, some of the polling on impeachment, 51%. The American people are only hearing one side of this story. I hope you share with me, we've had a fundamental constitutional right in this country. A belief in our judicial system. That you have the right to be presumed innocent rather than deemed guilty and then to prove yourself innocent. I'll tell you why it was a very easy vote to vote no. I voted to be able to have transparency, but it was an unnecessary vote. The president already released the transcript of his conversation with the president of Ukraine. Had demanded and then made sure that the whistleblower complaint was publicly viewable. You know what we know. Was an impeachable offense actually real? No. Nothing in that made it an impeachable offense. But we have a Democratic Party whose sole goal is to be able to tear down and dispose of Donald Trump.
And the Constitution.
We need to protect this Constitution. You bet we do. And we get to have some good news. I see Lauren's here. Beto O'Rourke, goodbye. Now, by the way, one thing we do need to be able to keep in mind, if the Democrats get in control, we need to look no further than the state of Colorado when they have absolute control of the agenda they'll drive. They overruled a vote of the people when it came to oil and gas regulations. These were people that decided that the Second Amendment doesn't mean anything and you don't have a right other than to prove yourself innocent when it came to their red flag law. And they decided that all of a sudden, Colorado was going to cede their votes, our votes, to the national popular vote. Thank you, Rose Pugliese, for helping me. But that's where they're going to want to go. Not one of us heard this last election from, Ray, you were there. Did anybody bring up in the election, hey, we want to cede Colorado's vote to the national popular vote? Not one. Not even Governor Polis, who shockingly signed that into law. Shocking. We've got Bernie Sanders, and I think Elizabeth Warren is in hip pocket with him as well, describing themselves as socialistic Democrats. Let me define that for you. What that actually means is we want the right to be able to take away what you have. I'll remind you, we do not live in a pure democracy. We live in a republic. We need to look no further than what's happening in the state of Colorado, what's being proposed by the Democrats in Washington, D.C. right now, to be able to understand the value of a republic. To be able, the ability to make sure that our voices are going to be truly heard. That those who may not share all of the opinions are not overridden by even just a majority of one. And we're going to be able to protect those constitutional rights. That's why this coming election is going to be really important. We need to hang on to the Senate. We need, in the House of Representatives, look at the map. 31 districts that Donald Trump won in the last election are now represented by Democrats. We flip 19 of those seats, hold on to the seats that we have, and all of a sudden, Kevin McCarthy is Speaker of the House and Nancy Pelosi is Minority Leader. We have a role to play. You have a role to play. I found it kind of interesting. I know Scott and Ray, they can certainly relate to this. A lot of your life, you're sitting on the other side of the table. And it's always kind of been my view, if you aren't beating up on Congress, you aren't an American. That's what we do. We're Americans. That's our job, to be able to do it. And your word's going to be suspect at times. Fair enough. But your friends, your family, they trust you. They believe in you. So the power of your voice, your ability to be able to carry that message, to be able to, when somebody says, how do you feel about who will you vote for? You're going to be casting more potential ballots than you know. This is an election that is virtually like none other. I think this last election, we saw the divine hand of God come into this country to be able to protect liberty. But now that is threatened. We do, again, for the first time, have avowed socialists running for government for the presidency of the United States. So if you're much like me, with your kids and now grandkids, if you care about their future, if you care about his future, our newly registered voter, and the country that they're going to inherit, it's our time not to sit and watch, but to stand and fight. This is our time to make sure that we are carrying that message through every channel that we can, that liberty is on the line. Freedom is on the line. That is our challenge. That should be our charge as individuals. We need to elect Donald Trump. We can help starting the way right here in Mesa County today. God bless you guys, and thank you for letting me.
You want Scott to sing? They asked me to sing earlier, and now you're gonna let Scott sing. Oh boy! I think this needs to be a group effort that we sing "God Bless America." So please stand and sing with Scott and myself.
This will be the most frightening thing I've done, probably. The most torturous thing you had to endure. Please join me, and then I'll start lip syncing at Raise a Price. God bless America. God bless America. Land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Records will be available for sale at the Republican Conference. Oh my God. You know, growing up, I grew up Catholic, so you can apologize now, but we had a priest at our church that sang off key so bad and we sang, and it was 7:30 in the morning, went to 7:30 in the morning mass. And every Sunday, whether we had an organist or not, we would sing. And one Sunday he got up and he said, you know, everyone always asks me, Father Hack, why do we sing every Sunday when your voice is so bad? And he said, well, God gave me a terrible voice. And so I sing every Sunday so he knows just what he did to me. Excuse me for a second.
Oh, you're Democrat now.
There you go. Instant recognition. Scott mentioned it so much and how important this election is, and I think I talked a little bit. $52 trillion for Medicare for all when our current budget is $4.3 trillion. Untold trillions in free education, untold trillions in paying off student loan debt, untold trillions in other programs that they want to add in. Free payment. You don't have to work. Let me get the check. That is such the antithesis of what we are. But this is the official hat of the Democrat Party. Okay? They are Santa Claus. They're going to give and give, and that's all they're going to talk about. Their entire campaign is going to be based on impeaching the president and giving stuff away. Now, if you start adding this up, it's about $100 trillion. And they're not going to tax the middle class. Okay, yeah. And hey, here's some good news in Mesa County, just for for you to know that Claudette Canola has gone unaffiliated. That's what she says. I think she hasn't found a spot in the Communist Party yet, so she's unaffiliated from the Democrats. And that's really what we're talking about here. This election, it's not socialism, it is communism, out and out communism. They ought to adopt the Soviet national anthem as their theme song at their rallies. Because that's what we're looking at. Communism versus freedom. And it's as simple as that. We fought this in the 1980s and we won. Greatest president that I know, Ronald Reagan. And then the guy gonna replace him in all likelihood standing on this side. And there's a reason why they're both here, because they are the two greatest presidents of our lifetime. I'm going to pull the person up here that we've all come to see today, who forced out a presidential candidate. Who runs a really awesome restaurant up in Rifle. If you have not ate there, oh my God, the food is awesome, the waitresses are awesome, they're all packing weapons, so it's just unbelievable. I think they actually shoot the cow before they cook it for you. So, without further ado, I am so proud she's here today, Lauren Bobert.
But it was Bad Moms. And so there was this woman who decided that she was going to run for the PTA. And all of her friends get behind her and they're like, go for it, you got this. And then she stands up to speak and her best friend on the front row says, oh my gosh, we overestimated her. So I hope that that's not the case. I hope you're not overestimating me. But like we've heard many times today, Beto is out. Really, it was an honor to drive down there and just confront such erroneous tactics. I went down there with the agenda to speak to him and to confront him because he had said that hell yes, emphatically, we're going to take your AR-15s and your AK-47s. And I said what every other American was thinking, hell no, you're not. And really, I was a little intimidated when I went there. It was out of my comfort zone. I was going into the lion's den. But I think in the end, they absolutely heard us roar. Beto O'Rourke, he actually did exactly what I expected him to. He went down there and pandered to defenseless victims. He stood on the graves of children of school shootings and the Aurora Theater Massacre. I grew up in Aurora. I was there for Columbine. And the worst part about that is those people were absolutely defenseless. And we're not saying that we are going to ultimately stop crime by arming citizens, but you will not take my right to defend myself away. So we have him gone, but Robert Francis O'Rourke was not the only one on stage in favor of gun control. We are still in a battle. He is not the only one that was pandering to Americans everywhere, saying that he was going to disarm us and trample upon our Second Amendment. Ultimately, they all want gun control because they all want socialism. And how are they going to successfully obtain socialism? They are going to disarm Americans, and then we have no way but to succumb to that.
Exactly right.
If they want me to believe that my president, Donald Trump, is the Nazi that they say he is, they better back off of my guns, because that is exactly what my Second Amendment protects. It protects me and you against a tyrannical government.
Right.
So if they're going to shout all of these lies about my president, they're going to have to back off my guns real quick. But all of these people that you see on stage at the Democratic debates, they are all in favor of all of these little notch laws. They just want to take an inch, and then more, and then more, and then more. They're all in favor of magazine bans, which in Colorado, you all know that we have. And there's really no way to enforce that. We have a lot of sheriffs that said that they refuse to enforce magazine bans. They're not date stamped or anything like that. So today I wore my 17-round magazine. My brand new 17-round magazine that I bought in 2013. So, we all know that these bills and laws are erroneous. They're just knee-jerk, feel-good reactions. And, you know, we even have candidates like Cory Booker, who are saying, just like you need a license to drive a car, you need a license to own a firearm. Hell no, you don't. I should not have to pay my government a fee to wear a jacket over my gun.
Amen.
I should not have to Elizabeth Warren herself has said this is not a one-and-done deal. She has criticized her other candidates for thinking that just one law will disarm Americans. She knows it's going to take multiple laws. And then you still hear people on council boards and everything saying, hey, just this one. We're not trying to take your gun rights away, just the AR-15s, just the AK-47s, just the magazines, exactly. But even she is up there declaring this is not one and done. It's going to take multiple bills to get what we're ultimately after, which is complete control.
Right. Yeah.
So, I was raised in a Democratic home. And we see now that Democrats are trying to lower the voting age. And I think that is because as we grow up, except for this gentleman here, our newly registered voter, as we grow up, we don't want to vote for Democratic policies anymore. We grow up and see that we do a better job taking care of our own lives than the government does. And we want them far away from our life. So at 17 years old, my husband and I, we embarked on that journey. We left the Democratic Party behind. We said, we're doing a better job already. They really just want us to be ignorant and broke and sick. And if we're too busy working, if we're too busy taking care of our health, then they can go ahead and run whatever kind of sham that they want because we're too busy trying to take care of our own life. So with all this said, what does this have to do with Shooter's Grill? Why do we have someone from a restaurant standing up and proclaiming these things here today? Well, in 2013, my husband and I opened Shooter's Grill in Rifle, Colorado. We did not open up as an open carry restaurant. We opened up just as a Western themed restaurant. We wanted to sell good food and honor our locals. About 30 days after we opened, maybe a few more, there was actually an altercation in our alley where a man was beat to death. There were no weapons, there was no guns, nothing. He was beat to death by another man's hands. And that immediately prompted the question, how will I defend my people? I did not have the time to go and pay my government a fee to obtain a concealed carry permit. I did not have time to take training classes. I've been on target shooting. I know how to shoot. I didn't have time for that. And so Colorado allowed me to open carry. I began to open carry that day and take action to protect my people. It was a few weeks after that my waitresses began approaching me and saying, hey, we already got our guns and our purses in the back. Can we have our... Yes. I don't want your guns back there. Yes, get them on you. And so really that just opened up this advocacy for the Second Amendment because I started to see how politicians are trying to take this away from people. And really it just opened up the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights to me like never before. And I just really developed a passion for America. And I wanted to do everything that I could to save her from democratic and socialist platforms. All of those politics. And with this advocacy for the Second Amendment, we really have began to empower women like never before. We have women coming through our training courses, and they are developing the skills to defend themselves and their families. And really, that is how you empower women. You know, Colorado is one of 7 states that allows full-term and post-term abortions. And they call that empowerment? No, defending the lives of your children is how you empower women. Honestly, I'm kind of tired of hearing how skilled Democrats are and how great their policy works and how effective they are at gathering people up. And I think it's time that a mandate is placed on all of us to rise up and do something about it. This seriously is a call to action. And I believe that each and every one of you in this room is called to be at tables where important conversations are being had, because you have the answers on the inside of you. And that is how we take our country back. We don't just sit back and say how good somebody else is doing. We go to the meetings where laws are being placed. I was in Aspen. I took on, Sharona and I and many others, we took on Aspen Council. They wanted to ban open carry firearms in all of their municipal buildings. They did pass that. They already had it in their mind to pass that. But I saw firsthand people passing laws that they knew nothing of. After they had passed open carry bans, the mayor himself came up to me and started asking me about firearm laws. He was absolutely clueless as to what they even meant, what they even prevent, and they have no idea. It's a feel-good reaction, a knee-jerk reaction, and really, these council members, they made a determination to take the rights of the people based on emotions and fears, and they were okay to say that. They were okay to say that guns scare people, so we're going to take this right away from you. We had other council members that said, we're not taking guns away from everyone because you can still carry with a concealed carry permit. Wrong. Because adults in Colorado have to be 21 years old to have a concealed carry permit. So adults 18 to 21 are now restricted from defending themselves in Aspen. And honestly, all of those people who were the first to call for those firearm bans are also the first to call a police officer and put his life in danger to protect their own. I believe that we have a right and a duty of self-preservation, of self-protection. And I'm so grateful for our law enforcement officers, but to say that we don't need guns and then call somebody with a gun when you need help and put their life in danger is absolutely wrong. I don't believe the cops have any obligation to actually defend a person. They can stop a threat, but they have no obligation to defend my life. That should be my obligation, and I'm tired of people trying to take that away from me. We've stood up to the Vetos, we've stood up to Aspen, and we're going to continue to stand up and fight for Colorado. We're standing up to Jared Polis and his red flag laws. Garfield County, our commissioners declared us to be a 2A preservation county. They know very well that red flag does not help with mental health. It absolutely tramples and rips apart our constitutional rights. It violates our First Amendment, our Second, our Fourth, our Fifth, our Sixth, and our 14th. There is almost nothing that this law doesn't infringe upon. And our governor has, by executive order, just kind of forced that upon us. It allows anonymous people with no evidence to make a claim and have your personal property taken from you. You don't even have the right to face your accuser. And just with all of this that's going on, I do want to make it known that open carry right now is absolutely on the chopping block. No, I don't want to pay my government a fee. No, but I will. I have, okay? When somebody tells you that you don't need to open carry, the Second Amendment doesn't talk about needs and necessities. You carry how you're comfortable carrying. This is on the chopping block. When they are successful in banning open carry, concealed carry will be the next on the list. And that is exactly what they will ban. And the FBI database says that nearly 1 million crimes are prevented just with the presentation of a firearm. So we don't even know how many other people see somebody open carrying and decide to go the other way. Lastly, I just wanted to praise Oklahoma for just a moment. As many of you may know, yesterday, Senator Nathan Dahm in Oklahoma was successful in passing constitutional carry, and I believe that's for Colorado. They were just feel-good measures. They were knee-jerk reaction, and that's where the rest of America is heading. And I believe that Colorado needs to take a stand, and we need to be constitutional carry, and we need to restore the rights back to the people, because really the government's number one job is to secure our rights.
Right.
We have the right to life, and what do we have the right to? Life, liberty, I wanted to say peace. And the pursuit of happiness, glory to God. Thank you. So anyway, the government's number one job is to secure these. These are God-given rights, and it's their duty to protect and preserve them. So thank you all so much for your time today. I appreciate you being here, and I'm eager to see all of you guys give the government a big hell no to socialism and the like.
Itching. I think I broke out on top. Let me get this back on. Oh, that feels better. Much better. Thanks. That's questionable. Don't take a vote on that. It's unbelievable because with the red flag law, do you know there actually was a law in Colorado before the red flag law that said if a police officer, if a counselor, if a doctor, psychiatrist, person in a position of power, if you told that person you were going to commit a crime, like shooting up a theater, was their obligation to report you, and there was a 72-hour part of time where they were arrested. Already existed.
Yeah.
The Aurora shooter told his psychiatrist exactly that, and she did not do her job. And she still has her license. Lauren hit on a great thing. The Constitution is not a limit on the people of America. It is a limit on the government of America. It spells out exactly what the government can do and cannot do, and they cannot screw with any of those rights in the first 10 amendments. Period. It's not you have the right to keep and bear arms unless we decide that maybe you need to do this or do that. I remember back when Ray ran the first time and his opponent got up and said, well, I believe in the Second Amendment, but, and I think some of you were in the audience, and holy cow, you could hear the gasp from people, and he went on a list. And Ray got up and said, well, I think the Second Amendment says you have the right to keep and bear arms. Any questions? Shortest answer a politician ever gave in his life. Folks, we are in the fight of our lives. What we have to do next year is to re-elect a president, and I think we can win Colorado, and I think President Trump thinks he can win Colorado. I think he's going to win by a margin that is going to stun people. But we have to work. We cannot be complacent. We can't sit back. So if we do another rally like this, say in February, we need to double the number of people. Bob has more chairs. He's already told me. He has more chairs, and he'd love to see more people. The Western Slope needs to lead, and we have. But we need to be the leaders, because this is Trump country. This is where he's going to win. This is where we're going to win elections. This is where we're going to send Scott Tipton back to Congress. This is where Cory Gardner is going to go back to the Senate. Because the alternatives are very simple. Diana Mintz-Bush, who ran against Scott last time and looks like she's going to run again, she is a communist. She's not a socialist. She's a communist. The people there lining up to run against Cory Gardner are all communists, okay? There is no Democrat Party anymore. It is gone. The Democrats of John Kennedy, the Democrats of Teddy Kennedy, they're gone. They don't exist anymore. And we need to point that out, and that's going to take work, hard work. People have come up to me at parades and said, well, you should be ashamed of yourself because I'm wearing a Trump hat. And I'm like, really? I'm proud. In 2016, I was his campaign chairman here in Mesa County because of Mr. Scott volunteering me. It was the proudest moment of my life. I went around the Western Slope, I spoke in Cortez and a couple other places. I was proud to be in the political and was proud of what they did. We need to be those people again, right? We need to fight like that. And I'm going to introduce now someone who is fighting the good fight for us. And I am so proud to call her my friend, so proud that she's our commissioner, and so proud of the work she's done. I'm her biggest supporter, that's all I can tell you, and it's Rose Pugliese.
Well, thank you all for being here today. What an incredible turnout, and I'm really excited because we have a lot of work to do. So I want to talk a little bit first about the good things that President Trump has done, because it's not the things you hear about every day, but he has done good things that have affected in a very positive way Mesa County every day. So last year I went on a tour of Europe, and my tour leader was from Lithuania, and our bus driver was from the UK. And one night we're sitting at dinner, and the tour guide from Lithuania was talking about President Trump in a very negative way. And I was sitting with a good friend of mine, Heather Benjamin, who was just looking at me from across the table because she knew I was just ready to explode. And they kept going, they kept going, they kept going. And then when they stopped, they said, well, what do you think of your president? And I was like, well, I'm glad you finally asked what I think of my president, because I think he's the most amazing president. And I said, you're from Lithuania, right? And she said, yeah. I said, how do you like buying your natural gas from Russia? And she's like, oh, it's horrible. They can turn it off at any time, and they use it to punish us. And I said, yeah, you know, there's a project going on right now in Mesa County, my little county, where we have enough resources in just the Piceance Basin, literally, to power the whole state of California for 50 years. We have an abundance of the resource. So I said, I am working on a project with a group of people, and thank you, Congressman Tipton, for your support. It's called the Jordan Cove Project. And what we were going to do is export our natural gas resources to places like China and Asia. I said, and maybe Eastern Europe at one point, so that you could buy your gas from the United States and not from Russia. And she goes, well, that would be amazing. How do we get that started? I said, well, your favorite president, President Obama, he stopped my project. I said, do you know who started the project back up? I said, President Trump. So you should be grateful that we are going to save your country from Russia. And so, she stopped for a little bit. They didn't really talk to me for too much after that. But then the next day, we stopped to get lunch, and her and the bus driver came over and said, we just want you to know, we like your president too. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. So little by little, one person at a time, we're obviously going to change that. So picture this, Saturday morning, my little guy runs out of milk, or I ran out of milk, and he was very angry with me. And so, hair in a mess, throw on some sweatpants, and run to City Market in Clifton to buy some milk. And I kind of hoped that nobody would really see me, but that's not quite how it works. So I run in just to get some milk, and a guy stops me, and I have no idea who he is. And he said, Rose, you're doing a really good job for us. And I was like, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. No makeup, hair and mess. And I said, well, I appreciate your support. And he said, you need to do something for me. And I said, what? He gives me $20. And I was like, what are you doing? And he said, the next time you go to Washington, D.C. and President Trump, because every time I go to D.C., I just hang out with President Trump, which is not the case. Although I wish it were. He said, the next time you go and see President Trump, would you give him this $20 to build a wall? He said, because I think that national security is the most important thing that our country should be worried about, and I want to make sure we protect our borders. So will you give him this $20? So I gave him his $20 back, just in case anybody was worried, and I said, hey, listen, I will make sure, I was like, give me your contact information, I will tell you where to send your $20 to build the wall, because I can't take your $20. But when I'm in Denver, and I'm in Denver a lot more than I'd like to be, but when I'm in Denver and I hear people saying, oh, nobody really likes this president. I'm like, well, I don't know about that. There's a guy who stopped me in City Market just the other day who obviously loves our president. Obviously, we all love our president. And like Congressman Tipton said, when I was driving, I only live a couple blocks away from here, but when I was driving up and saw those Trump signs, I was just so overwhelmed with pride. And especially seeing all these people in the room today, we have so much work to do to get the good word out of the great things this president is doing for our country. I mean, he is going to make sure that we are protected from our enemies, foreign and domestic. That is the most important thing that government could be doing. And otherwise, we should be protecting ourselves. I agree with my friend Lauren on that one. And so I want to make sure that we all go out there as grassroots army, and we've seen it done. I mean, when I started this work on the national popular vote, I never thought a movement would start in the way it did. 2,200 grassroots volunteers, every neighborhood, lines wrapped around buildings, because whether it's the state or the federal government, everybody is trying to take away our freedoms, and we are going to fight and make sure that doesn't happen. So I'll just give you a little bit of background. My father immigrated, legally immigrated, to this country when he was 21, and he did it to escape socialism. Italy is a beautiful country, and I encourage you all to go there, but you're not going to live in Italy, right? I mean, in Italy, they give you a stipend. You work, you give the government all of your money, and then they decide how much money you get back. So it doesn't matter how successful you are, you have to take care of all the unsuccessful people. That is true. It doesn't matter how hard you work, your money will be taken away from you and given to the masses, because that's how they take care of you. Because we really want government involved in our insurance, right? My cousin has a daughter the same age as my little girl, Allie, who has a genetic issue. And instead of getting her medical needs taken care of, they send her home with vitamins because the drugs that she needs are just too expensive for the government to pay for. And my family down south is pretty poor, and they can't afford to buy the drugs for themselves. When my grandmother in Italy had bone cancer and literally was screaming in pain in the middle of the night, the government would not give her painkillers unless she could afford to pay for it, because she was old, and old people just need to die. Because that's less people they need to take care of. And that's the truth. That's the reality. I am not making up stories. I mean, I have seen socialism for myself, and I would never, ever want this country to experience what my family experiences. Every time I go and visit my family, as beautiful and wonderful of a country as it is, my cousins beg me, my male cousins beg me, to bring them over to America so they can support their families. And there isn't a way to do that. They need to go through the legal system, and it's difficult. So I'm not saying that we don't have an issue that we need to deal with on immigration, but we need to do it legally. I don't just bring my cousins over through the border and say that that's okay. They need to come here legally and get jobs and work here legally. And so my father, when the second day of the first debate came, I was in New York with my dad and my family, and we were watching the debate. And when they said, should we have open borders for everybody? Or no, I think the question was, should we have health care for all illegals? And everybody raised their hand. My father sat there with this look on his face, and he said, you know how hard I worked to come to this country to give you all a good life, and I expect nothing from government. I am going to take care of myself, and I'm going to take care of my family. He's like, these people who come over illegally, they have no right to what we have worked for. They need to do it the way we do it. And it was so painful to watch his face, because he had worked so hard, and he had done it the right way. And he made sure that we had opportunities, my sisters and me, that my cousins will never have, because we live in the United States of America, and we need to be proud of the United States of America and proud to be it. I was so blessed to be able to go to President Trump's inauguration, and And it was, Washington, D.C. in January. At the end of January isn't generally the best time to be outside, but the inauguration is outside. And it was dark and gloomy, kind of sprinkling a little bit. You weren't sure if the clouds were going to open. And the time that he raised his hand to take his oath of office to God and to the American people, I swear to you, I am not making this up. The clouds opened and a ray of sunshine went right on the president. And I still get chills. I thought, thank you, God, for saving us. But we won't have that chance again if we don't re-elect President Trump. We have been so fortunate that God saved us. He's not going to give us another chance. So we have got to fight for our country, for our people, for our children. I know that when I wake up the day after Election Day in 2020, I know that I will say I have done everything in my power over this past year and a day to make sure that my children have the opportunities that I was given and so blessed because I live in the United States of America, the best country in the world, and we will keep America great again. So please, get out, please work. It's so important that we all come together this year and make sure that President Trump gets reelected. So thank you all for being here today.
I hope people are taking pictures of this because, the Republican Party is supposed to hate moms and women and everything like that. So I'm so proud to have these young women fighting for us. Because again, I'm getting too old for this crap. As simple as that. Just a couple things. Back table back there is a sign-up sheet for volunteers. We need volunteers. Okay? So please, as you're leaving today, buy some swag, sign up to volunteer. Because that's how elections are won. Walking and knocking door to door. I joke about it all the time, but that's how that guy won the first time. Got outspent 5-1, but he walked and drove. And I saw it because I was in the truck with him. Hard work. Elections are about hard work. And if we can outwork the Democrats, and we can, we are going to win. And we're going to win for our people. My little voter first time and the young lady up here, that's what it's all about. In 20 years from now, they have to have the opportunity to succeed. And we've got to provide that for them. We can't do that, okay? So we've got to fight. Secondly, 2 announcements from my office. We are going to be involved in the food drive this year, so bring your perishable food by the office, non-perishable. Thanks. Karen is here because I'm going to misspeak all the time and she's going to recite. Non-perishable food for humans and pets, okay? Bring it by the office, 1227 North 23rd, Suite 107. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday, we're open right now. Coming next year, we'll be open a lot more, and we're going to need volunteers to sit in that office. So please, that's our big work for this month is to do the food drive, and then in December, the party is going to be involved with Hope of the Grand Valley. We're going to adopt a couple families. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. My B&I group has done it the last 3 years now. They work with families who are not on government assistance, but just have that little problem making ends meet. And so we provide a great Christmas for the kids and the family, a good dinner and great presents. And it's a great organization. So look for the list of gifts we're going to be getting for these families and dinners, and please get involved. Even if you can't get involved with the party, look and get involved with Hope of the Grand Valley, because that is a great institution. And when we talk about socialism, that institution doesn't exist under socialism. It's all the government. We are supposed to be the ones to solve these problems. We need to pick our neighbor up when they're down. We need to help them and feed them. And that is our call from God to do that. Remember that the Constitution was given to us by God. It didn't come from the government. It came from God for us, okay? So please help us out in the next couple of months as we help those who are less fortunate than us. going to bring up my next speaker. Again, I'm with the youth movement, so I'm going to bring Cody on up. I'm so proud to know this young man. Again, doing it the right way, building a business, taking care of his family, and running for office. And the youth movement is so important as part of it because, again, Scott looks a lot better than any of us. We need young people and we need to get them excited. That's why I'm so excited standing at the back table. I'll do this real quick. A couple of my officers are here. Parker, go ahead and wave. Parker King. Young enough to be my grandson. Alden Savoca. Definitely young enough to be my grandson. You saw Harper earlier. Did Cat Kanda make it in today? No. Okay, so he's working hard on the budget for the company he works for. He's a Republican, he works for a living. And that's, when we talk about volunteering, we do this around our regular jobs, right? Okay, so we need to be there because we know what the other side's got. They pay people to go do this thing for them. So, Cody, come on up. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, thank you guys. I consider it just an opportunity to be up here with all these giants in the movement. It's humbling. I don't think I should be standing on a stage with a couple of these people, and I'm humbled that you'll even listen to me. So a little bit about me. I'm a father of 5 kids with 4 different mothers, and I'm still married to my first wife. I should mention that I'm a foster dad. I'll tell you, I think it's a bad idea to lower the age, the voting age. Why? Because I've got 5 socialists living in my house that think money grows on trees, that they want everything for nothing, and that we have a magic pantry that everything just reappears. So I think lowering the voting age is probably a bad idea. But guys, again, thank you for this opportunity. I consider myself a product of opportunity, and that's what the United States is all about. My great-great-grandparents moved out here in the early 1900s. Why? Well, 1, to get out of a Democratic-controlled city, but 2, for opportunity. They found it in farming. And so I consider myself a product of opportunity, and that's what we're ultimately fighting for, is opportunity. People aren't clamoring to get into the United States for a handout, for a check. Why are they trying to get into the United States? Because they see an opportunity. They see a city on a hill shining, brimming with opportunity. That's why they're fighting to get in the United States, and that's what I want to fight to defend, is opportunity. Guys, how do Democrats take away our rights? Piece by piece. But they make a claim to this thing called collective rights. They say this group of people's rights to safety, to education, you name it, is more important than your individual rights. Well, I'm telling you guys today, there is no such thing as a collective right. A collective right is at the expense of your individual right, and we need to stand up at every instance and fight for our individual rights. There are a couple limits on government, right? One of them is the Constitution of the United States, one of the most beautiful documents on the face of the planet, right? Why do I say that? In Tipton Square, when the students were about to be slaughtered, you know what they were holding? They were holding the Constitution of the United States. Because they read it and they believed that declaration that those men made almost 300 years ago was that we want freedom, we want an opportunity. And they thought that so beautiful that they were reading nothing else. They weren't reading Karl Marx. They were reading the Constitution of the United States, one of the most beautiful documents we have. So we need to defend, whether it's our First Amendment, Second Amendment rights, we need to defend those rights. And here's how they do it. Here's how they take away our rights. They make a plea to, again, a collective need, right? The right of children to be safe, which, who doesn't think we want children to be safe in schools? It's absurd. Or they plead to our need for health care, or our plea for something at the expense of my First Amendment rights, or at the expense of my Second Amendment rights. The Second Amendment is a beautiful thing. Not only do we have the right to defend ourselves, but it is another, what? Check against the government. Did Nazi Germany have Second Amendment rights? Absolutely not. So again, it's another check against the government. Guys, I'm a proponent of opportunity. Every one of you guys in here probably have had an opportunity in your life. And that's what we have to maintain here in Mesa County, in the state of Colorado, and in the United States, is everybody's ability to have opportunity. Thank you guys, and God bless.
Somewhere the Democrat Party is just shaking in their boots over these ideas because it's mind-blowing. What? Individuals? What?
They don't understand.
They don't. They've gone so far away from what they were founded on. Because Thomas Jefferson, the man who wrote the Declaration of Independence, was a Democrat. As were most of the founders. But they viewed their job differently. And they went to secure liberty for us. And through complacency, we're giving it away. And that's really what's going on. Every time we say, and I've heard this so many times in the past 3 or 4 months, because I'm fighting, and you saw my article about no on CC, and please, who has not voted? Anybody here? Get your neighbors, get the ballots turned in, and vote down CC. Please vote down CC. We cannot exist as a state if they take away our tabor rights, and that's what CC does. Don't let them kid you. It's not for the bridges. It's not for the roads. It's not for the schools. It is to take Tabor out. Tabor's a tripod, so Alden has the tripod with the camera right there. If we take one of those legs off that tripod, what happens? It falls over. Okay, so if they take the right not to have limited spending out of Tabor, what happens? Tabor falls over. So please, get your neighbors, get your friends, get them to get their ballots in and vote no on CC. It's the most important thing. But all through these discussions, like I'll post something, and people will say, well, what good does it do? Because they don't listen to us anyway. Right? The Public Utilities Commission came over to talk about they're going to force an increase in your electric bill because XL has a mandated government monopoly in this state. They're going to force an increase in your electric bill, and 3 people showed up to say no. Me, another woman, and that guy right there. And I was like, I mean, this was in the paper. Why? And well, what good is they're just going to vote it in? And they said, if you stop coming, if you stop showing up, then they won't even come over here. They won't even ask. They'll just do it. The great line, one of my favorite movies, Casablanca. And there's a scene in the movie where Humphrey Bogart's character, Rick Blaine, is talking to the resistance leader after their meeting got broken up. And he's helping him fix a cut on his arm, and he goes to him, don't you wonder if this is worth it? The whole thing. And the resistance leader looks at him and goes, we might as well question why we breathe. If we stop breathing, we'll die. If we stop fighting our enemies, the world will die. It's the greatest line in a movie I've ever heard. Because that's the fact. If we stop fighting, if we stop showing up, if we stop doing our job, this country is going to die. And I don't want to do that to these kids. I don't want to leave that legacy to them, so that's why I'm out here fighting every day. So, we're going to move on with our next speaker. He's a man I've known for 10, 12, 13 years. We were just talking, actually. He used to live right up here. And back in 2007, I was doing the lettering for his vans and stuff like that, and he told me, well, I'm not bringing it to you, you have to come out here. And worked in the shop out here. I've known him that long. He's a patriot. He's a tremendous individual. He doesn't get a lot of credit for the work he does. Ray Scott.
Well, thank you so much for being here. You all are amazing. You all are fired up and ready to go, I can tell. And I don't know how to thank these folks that have spoke ahead of me, because they didn't leave a whole lot left for you to say. So, good night. I'd like to see that Kevin puts me on a short leash all the time. I can't go too darn far away. So, I sat here and I thought, okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground. We're all patriots. We all care about the Constitution. the Second Amendment here. Great job. Great job. So I thought, I'll kind of give you some background. Back in 2016, when I was contacted to work as a Trump coordinator for Western Colorado, people said, "You're crazy." My colleagues in Denver said, "Don't touch him with a 10-foot pole. You are going to destroy any kind of political career that you have. It's 10 crews or nothing," right? It was 10 crews or nothing, or whoever else they were picking at that time. Went to the big convention in Denver. Oh my Lord, what a battle. What an epic battle we had. Because people kept saying Donald Trump was not a conservative. He wasn't good enough for us. And I kept saying, well, he's going to pay me, so he's good enough for me. But, so we had some major discussions, and I had several of my colleagues at the State House that said, "Man, you're blowing it, dude. It's all over. It's going to be all over." But I believed in what I saw with this man. Number one, he had a brain. Number two, he was not a career politician. In any sense of the word. And I kind of felt like this guy will say what has to be said. He didn't say what you wanted to hear. He said what you needed. You had to hear it. You had to hear it. It was painful. We, as conservative Republicans, already knew some of the problems. But he was able to get through the rest of the country. And he did an incredible job of doing so. Was it popular ways of saying it? No. Was it politically correct? No. And I thought back to when I ran for office, I was told by Republicans I was not politically correct. I was actually asked, true story, by the chairman at that time of Mesa County to get out of the race. No. We can't have this kind of a guy running for state representative. We just can't do that. They have their hand-picked candidate. So I kind of went back to that and said, well, they kind of tried to do that to me. Now they're trying to do it to him. I think I like this guy. I think I really like this guy. And then as we got into the battle, it was fascinating. I'll tell you a couple stories from the office that we had. I was asked a couple times to come out front to talk to somebody because they were concerned. So I went out to talk to them, and they would say, I haven't voted in 20 years, but I want to vote for Donald Trump, and I don't know what to do. It was fascinating. As typical organizations, we tend to see the same 20 people who will show up for a lunch or a get together. There were people showing up at my office. It was unbelievable. I don't know where they came from. I had people make me a sculpture, for Pete's sake, that came in and said, "We want you to have this for working for Donald Trump." I mean, I had all kinds of things going on. We had people that had never registered. Best story ever. Phone call. I was told there's a lady from Aspen on the phone. This was a good one. And I get on the phone with her, and she goes, "I am a Democrat from Aspen." I said, "Well, God bless you." I said, "You should move somewhere else." She said, "If we want to vote for Donald Trump, but the Democratic Party is telling us we can't." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well," I walked through the ballot with her and explained to her that, yeah, you can vote for anybody you want to. So she asked me to come to Glenwood Springs to meet with a group of people from Tipton County. And I thought, well, here goes my life. But I thought, what the heck, I'm going to do it. So I drove to Glenwood, got to this undisclosed coffee shop in an undisclosed location. And I walked up to the door, and the owner was standing at the door because he saw me park. I walked to the door. He said, "Are you who I think you are?" And I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Come on in." I went in, he locked the door and flipped the sign to close. That's the moment I realized I forgot my personal protection. They took me in a back room. I go in this back room. And there was probably, I think there was 8 or 9 wonderful people that were actually a lot of fun. And they were very polite, but we had a conversation about voting for president. It was fascinating because these women, and they wanted to make sure I understood they were not going to switch their party. And I said, I don't care. You're blessed. Whatever you want to do, you be what you want to be. But they said, we want to vote for Donald Trump. So I went with a ballot. I showed them how to do it. And I said, you have not been told the truth. You can vote for the President of the United States just this way. I walked out of the building like this, got in my car, and I left. But that, and they thanked me, and actually I stay in touch with a couple of them even today. And they're still, and I don't care, they're Democrats, that's fine. That was an interesting story. When the president, actually, believe it or not, we actually had a process we had to go through to be selected to work on his campaign. This is a really good story. So I filled out my paperwork, they did a background check, they asked me to leave the United States. I did the background check, and then I was sitting on the couch. I tend to binge on Netflix. Does anybody do that? I don't. No,
Not
this
anymore.
is a true story. 2 in the morning, I'm sitting on my couch, watching whatever the heck I think it was Longmire, Texas, but was it Longmire? And I'm sitting there, and my phone rings, and I look at my phone, and it's a New York phone number. You probably know where I'm going with it. And I looked at it, and I thought, who the hell's calling me at 2 a.m. from New York? And I answered it. It was Donald J. Trump. So that's 4 in the morning where he's at. And he says, I know you think this is a joke by one of your bad friends from college or high school. And I said, I do. But he convinced me who he was. But we had a fascinating 1-hour conversation. He wanted to know about energy. He wanted to know about natural gas. He wanted to know about oil production. He wanted to know about how that could be a nexus to paying down the national debt. He wanted to know how could we export those raw energy materials to other countries. He wanted to know how we could lead the world in energy production. It was a fascinating discussion. We got into the $6 trillion that was projected as far as what we could do with energy in the world, in the United States, $6 trillion of revenues. And he didn't want to believe that number. Now there's a guy by the name of Harold Hamm, who started Continental Resources, lives in Oklahoma, multi-billionaire. He was the head of Trump's energy team, which I was on. And we met multiple times, and they went to, I don't know if you guys remember this shop, but in Bismarck, North Dakota. The president, our new president then, gave a speech. And he talked about $6 trillion and what we could do with that. He talked about exporting natural gas. He talked about exporting oil. And I'm sitting there getting all excited because I'm thinking, dang, I'm the guy that told him that. But actually, Harold Hamm was the one that kind of enforced that. I wasn't that good. But it was a fascinating journey. When he was here, y'all remember when he was here? We pressed pretty hard to get that done, but he agreed and did it, and I hope he's going to do it again.
Yes.
After this was over, he had asked for a few of us, we asked the Secret Service to go fetch us and bring us to the plane. Got to the plane, and it's true, it's gold-plated. Totally, it is gold-plated everywhere. But he is the most down-to-earth, I believe, man. When you are with him in person, he kind of has a switch, right? When he gets in front of the cameras, he hits the switch. But when you're around him personally, he cared about my. The first question was, how many kids do you have? How long have you lived here? What do you think about? I mean, he would just start asking these personal questions. A very personal man, has a huge, deep belief in God, and he also likes Big Macs. We actually sat on the tarmac waiting for the Secret Service to come from, I think it was 12th Street, to bring him Big Macs. That's a true story. He loves Big Macs. Well, maybe Melania's got him straightened out by now. He loves Big Macs. But the thing I go back to and I keep thinking about, and Ms. Lauren, you touched on this a little bit, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Donald Trump believes in life. He believes from conception, it is life. He believes and beyond that, he believes in protecting life after birth, of course. liberty. He truly believes in liberty. He believes heavily in states' rights. He wants the people to be in charge, not the government. I think you all have seen that from his actions. And Lord knows he wants the pursuit of happiness. He wants all of us to prosper, be free, and not worry about the government. Not worry about the government. He told us once on a conference call, right after he was elected, we had what they call the GO team. We were talking about infrastructure spending. And there's so many experts in the world on this stuff. You can load it up. So somebody on the line said something about airports. Can't remember exactly what they said, but he came on the line. He was actually sitting there listening. And he said, I just landed at 400 here, blip airports, and yes, we're going to spend money on that infrastructure. But then he stayed on the line and he said the following, and I want you to think about this because this is exactly what he's done. He said, I want you all to understand something. Once I'm inaugurated and we are on our way, I will be the man standing in the front and I will take the arrows. I will take the arrows. I will take the punches to the stomach. The arrows would come from Elizabeth Warren, of course. Wherever you are, me too, I love you. But he said, I will take those arrows, and you go to work. You get the job done. And that's exactly what he's doing. He's exactly what he's doing. He's the guy, all the soldiers back there are working their tail ends off, and he's distracting everybody. Here's the fire name, right here. And he's a master of doing that. He's a master. We're in a great place. I think we will be a landslide victory. That's what I believe. I think they've fallen right into his trap. Impeachment, in my mind, is a trap for the Democrats. And I always knew they were kind of on the less intelligent side. It's not politically correct, I'm sorry. They're not sure what they identify with. That's a joke, so you're supposed to Or as. But they are so determined to take this president down that they've dropped right in the hole of impeachment. I don't know what this is going to look like at the end, but I have not seen one thing that Donald J. Trump has not done that he hasn't calculated to the nth degree. He has done a masterful job of taking them where he wants them to go. We've got to keep him in power. We have to keep Congressman Tipton in power. We have to build on that minority and hopefully get to a majority. We have to get to a place where we are in control again. We just have to. It's imperative. Mesa County will do its job. It always does. It always does.
Garfield 2.
I should have known that was going to happen. I should have known. Garfield 2. I know. I blew it, sorry. But we have a lot of work to do. We know that. We know what we have to do. We've got great leadership in the party. We've got great leadership behind me. You guys are rock stars. Doug, God bless you. Thank you for putting this together along with Richard and the rest of the gang. This guy's been a patriot that when I first met this man, I think the first thing he did was frisk me to see if I had it. Then I think he actually stuck one on my belt because I did that time. This guy is a patriot. I've never seen a man this passionate about this country and freedom. He's always been a rock star. It was a pleasure working with him, man. I look forward to many, many more years of working with him. One thing I want to do real quick is I do want to point out we have a couple other elected officials. Matt Soper's back here. Just so you know, I tease Matt all the time. You see this little badge? We wear these once in a while. I lose about 10 of them a year. I can't hang on this stupid stuff. And then after you've been around a while, you just kind of quickly just forget it, right? Because it's like, well, everybody knows my ugly face. So, and I tease him out all the time because I've seen him in pictures like at the gym in spandex. At the pool, he has on his bathing trunks. I know, I love it. Actually, I have to admit, I looked at his wedding pictures. Congratulations, by the way. I swear to God, I looked at his tuxedo just to see if he had it. But that's no, we love it. Janice Rich. These guys came into an absolute house of fire, and they've really done a great job. I mean, they're hanging in there. I told you guys it was a learning curve like this. It is. It's a tough trip, but they're doing a great job. Scott McGinnis, we're pointing you out, Mr. Congressman. Scott's been a rock star for 100 years. But, I want to thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure to serve you for 10 years now. Seems like an eternity sometimes, but it's been a pleasure. I know that we're going to come together. I know that we're going to fight. I know we're going to do the right thing. I know you guys are fired up and you're ready to go. And we are going to re-elect Donald Trump as our president.
Yes.
Absolutely no question.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks for taking my job over, too. I was going to introduce those people in my next segment, so. Oh, my God. I tell you, as a host, I get no respect. I'm going to point out a couple other people. Carrie, the queen of Garfield County, she's my counterpart up in Garfield County, and she does a great job. Sitting down in front hiding is Alice Baumgartner. He's the chairman of the hardest working women's group in the county, the Mesa County Republican Women. And this Monday, they're having their lunch. So if you got a little free time, by the Doubletree Hotel. Joyce Ring. Joyce Ring is going to be speaking. Get by the hotel and see them. Got one more speaker to bring up. Known him for about 4 years. He was the leader of the deplorables in Mesa County in 2016. Helped get votes for Donald Trump, which is incalculable. I'm going to tell my one Donald Trump story that I have, though. So after I was appointed, he was going to be in Colorado Springs for a rally. And so I conned Brad Barker to fly me over to Colorado Springs to go to the rally. We got VIP tickets, and we're standing in the VIP section, and he hasn't got there yet, and his family comes in. It's a mom and a dad. Some of you have heard tell this story, but I think it's the greatest story ever. And mom and dad, and 2 kids, and the one kid, it's his first election, he's 18, he's going to vote, but he's in the Asperger's spectrum. But he is an artist, and a talented artist, gorgeous, and he has this framed picture of an elephant that he's drawn. And he's framed it, he's got a little letter back explaining who he is, and he's there to give it to the president. And he's telling me about this, and he's going, I'm so proud that this is my first election, and I don't, Donald Trump is a Republican, I'm here to give him this picture. And so I tapped the guys in front of me in the VIP section. I said, no matter what happens, this kid gets that picture through to Donald Trump. I'm like, okay. So Mr. Trump gets done with his speech, and he's coming down the aisle and shaking hands. And part the Red Sea, and the kid hands the picture through, and Trump's going to autograph it and hand it back to him. And the kid's, no, that's for you. And Donald Trump stops, and he looks at this picture, and he looks at the kid, and he goes, this is for me. And of course, at that point, the kid is petrified. You drew this, and you're giving this to me. And he turns to the mom and looks at her, and he goes, this is your son, you must be so proud. And she goes, I am. He goes, well, I thought it was your boyfriend. But that kid walked out of that rally 15 feet tall. 15 feet tall. hall. I mean, I was astonished because I've been to a lot of political events. And 9 times out of 10, the guy either takes the picture and hands it off, or he hands it back, but he never engages that kid in that conversation. That's who Donald Trump is. So he gets another section down, and here are 2 women with 6-month-old babies. And they happen to be sisters of the guy who got me involved, Bob. And so he's like, okay, I'll do the obligatory. Here I am with a baby, 6-month-old, holds him up for the cameras, laughing, and like, you know, because you know what they tell politicians, never pick up a baby. Well, yeah, okay. Because bad things happen, if you pick up a baby, they're going to puke on you or something, right? So he gets done and he hands the kids back, and again, instead of just thrusting them to the mom, puts them down, smooths out their hair, and gives each of them a kiss on the forehead, and goes on his way. We have a real human being for President of the United States. A real man who loves his family, who loves the kids of this country, and will fight for the kids of this country. So, I'm going to bring Michael up. I'm so proud that he's running for office because we need every voice in this party to speak. So, Michael Day.
Thank you very much, Terry. Now, it's pretty interesting to feel like I've come full circle, being here today for this Trump rally. The last time I spoke, it was an oil and gas rally for Trump. It was 2016. We'd already gotten past the primary. I can tell you that I was pretty frustrated by that point, and as were many of you. And before I continue, I want to bring up a point that my good friend, Senator Chris Holbert, love this guy, who is Senate Majority Leader and Senate Minority Leader now, tragically. He puts out a daily journal every day of the 120 days of our legislative session, and he brings us into the fold. He tries to give you the opportunity to understand the process. And because of his initiative to bring us into the fold, I created a Facebook page, Understand the Process, so folks could read it and go through it. But one important thing that he brings to light through those daily journals is that he suggests that you advocate. If you're going to advocate for something, you should first advocate to those people who would be in agreement with you, agree with you. I kind of tend to go the other direction. I mostly have throughout my life, as I did with the president, with Donald Trump when he was running for president. And I got a lot of blowback in the early days because I came right out of the gate when the first day that he announced that he was running, as he's coming down the escalator there, the elevator, I'm cheering him on, and folks I've known for years around here beat me up for it. Not much unlike what Senator Scott went through from his colleagues up there. And then we went on to have our frustrations with our ability to vote in that presidential primary. So, you know, one of the things that I've advocated for is empowering you. This is about all of you. And while I feel like I'm probably preaching to the choir about what a great job President Trump has done here, it is reaching out to those other areas where they're just haven't grasped the importance of what's going on. And I was reflecting over what we were talking about. We keep talking about the Democrats and how difficult they are to communicate with. And I've reached into the word, I don't call them Democrats, progressives. Because I've found them on both sides of the aisle, folks. And I equate it to trying to have a conversation with a drunk. And have you ever tried to have a conversation with a drunk? You know, you got some guy, you're managing a bar or a restaurant, and he's sitting there and he gets completely obliterated, and you just want to make sure the guy gets home, but this guy is just going to be unreasonable jerk, and he's either going to hurt himself or somebody else on the way out the door. Well, they're hurting America, folks. They're hurting America, and I don't want to harp and preach on this crowd of Trump supporters. Our difficult task is reaching out to those people who haven't really grasped what we've given away. Donald Trump, when he ran for office, He said, we are going to drain the swamp. He did not say, I am going to drain the swamp. He said, we are going to drain the swamp. One man cannot do this. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights, I hear this argument all the time, I want my constitutional rights. We need to take another deep look at that, folks. The Bill of Rights is what gives us the power. But the Constitution, it's an operating manual. It's how they're supposed to do business up there. And when they don't do business according to those rules, we have the Bill of Rights to make sure that they do and hold them accountable. Okay? All right? That's where we need to be with it's our Bill of Rights and our ability to act. Donald Trump has done an amazing job. He stood up against insurmountable odds. And I love this whole impeachment thing. This is like the last nail in the coffin. It is the final blow that you give someone enough rope and by God, they will hang themselves. They will do it. I guarantee they will do it. So here I am full circle, and I can say the same thing today that I said then, although when I said it then, I didn't realize that I was going to have a majority in the House that was going to be a bunch of drunks and so argumentative. I said, listen, folks, whether you like me or not for making this choice, Donald Trump is what we need for president. And I have hired Donald Trump to be my personal consultant to put this country back together again. And as for everybody else, I gave him your pink slip. And I've been working at it ever since. Now we're fortunate here in Mesa County in that we're solid and we're red. But I reach out to and I talk to people all across this country. I don't, I'm comfortable here in my safe space of Mesa County. Because this is where, it's always been my home and my heart for the last 34 years, coming back and forth. And no, I haven't been here consistently until the last 8. But nonetheless, I digress. There's one other thing I want to touch on because I was really surprised that Congressman Tipton was going to be here today. And this is something that is in everybody's hearts, on everybody's minds, and it's this illegal immigration problem that we have. And we're all excited that we're building a wall. But with any edifice, you must have a cornerstone. And that cornerstone must be placed properly. It must be placed correctly. It must be set on solid ground so that the rest of the building can be built around us. Okay? And law enforcement has been demonized and picked apart, as so has immigration. The Department of Homeland Security has a form that has pitted immigration, ICE, against law enforcement, and law enforcement against ICE. And with one simple omission of one paragraph, we can put an end to the division between the two and get the two of them working together again, Congressman Tipton. And I brought this to your attention. I brought this to the attention of Congressman Buck. I brought it to the attention of Senator Gardner. Congressman Buck and I went on it at length. But, given the troubles in the House, I was disappointed that Congressman Buck, at the end of the day, I asked for judicial review of this form. And that is where the problem occurs. There's no judicial review of this form. And our law enforcement agencies are told that they must hold these people 48 hours after the date and time that they've been scheduled to be released. Where this becomes a problem is that it's a constitutional violation. Believe it or not, it is. Because once an individual puts their feet on American soil, They are a citizen of this country and they're subjected to our laws. And in order to correct that problem, to get rid of that conflict, ICE needs to quit demanding that law enforcement hold them an additional 48 hours. ICE needs to submit that form to them and say, we're going to come and get this guy, and then they need to come and get that guy instead of passing the buck on to law enforcement to release them, because what then happens is we have a non-governmental agency, the Center for Immigration Studies, proclaiming that the United States of America is a sanctuary city, when it's not. It's not. We have an internal conflict that you guys can fix by removing one paragraph, and that then is the cornerstone of upholding our immigration laws and protecting our citizens. We don't just have a wall there to keep them out. We must uphold our laws that we already have in place, and we need to observe the Bill of Rights and use that Bill of Rights to tell those guys who are supposed to be operating under the Constitution, their business model, get the job done. We got the 2020 election coming up. There's a lot going on. We get the opportunity to vote in a presidential primary from here on out. We addressed that issue. One of the big issues here on the Western Slope that people had complained about for decades was the folks in the East always having control. And then during that presidential election, it was that we got denied our right to vote in the presidential primary, particularly those folks who supported Donald Trump. So we addressed that issue with 71, 107, 108. What was wrong with 71? What was the only thing that was, does anybody remember? Do we all remember? Because it was a monumental thing that we passed. Remember what 71 was? 71 was if you wanted to change anything in our state's constitution, you had to have equal representation throughout the state in order to do so. Hence the reason they're circulating that petition now throughout each of the counties to get a sufficient number of signatures for the only citizens of the state of Colorado can vote. So this is great when it comes to saying that the people in the East, in and of themselves, are not going to have such a majority that they can put anything on the ballot to change the Constitution. What it didn't do was protect us from the majority in the House that we have of these socialist progressives, and the majority that we have in the Senate now, so jumping out of the corners and introducing something for the ballot that changes something in our Constitution, i.e. the national popular vote. Thank you, Rose, very much. Thank you. So I'll end on the oil and gas and the Jordan Cove thing. I'll tell you, the second thing I said, the first thing I said at the Trump rally was I hired Donald Trump to be my personal consultant. As for everybody else, I gave him a pink slip. The second thing I asked, and Ray Scott was there, Scott Tipton was, or not Scott Tipton, Scott McCinnis was there, Rose Pugliese was there, some Koga people were there. I said, why aren't we exporting our natural resources? Why isn't that happening? Now, it's not the first time I've asked it, but it was the first time I had the opportunity to stand up in front of people whose job it was to know this stuff and to be working on it. Why haven't you been working on it? 2 weeks later, this lady is the one who brought it to the table. Rose Pugliese. Out of nowhere, this little lady from New York, everybody complains, well, there must be those California people, there must be those people from out of state. This little lady from New York brought Jordan Cove to the table of Mesa County, brought it to our attention. Folks, Jordan Cove has been on the table for 10 years. It's been tabled now for the next year due to some problems with the permit, but we are pressing forward with that because to channel through Canada or channel through Mexico means that one or both of them is going to want a cut of our net profits. This is America first. That's what Donald Trump is all about, empowering you and putting America first. If we're going to have America first, we need our pipeline finished coming through America. We need to be exporting our natural gases from our shores, not the shores of some foreign country. And we need to put the money in our pockets here in Mesa County. My name's Michael Day, President Trump. He's our guy in 2020. Anybody else? We'll be right back to square one. Instead of taking 2 steps forward, we'll take 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and we'll be a day late, $1 short. So please get out there and talk to everybody, not just amongst those you're in agreement with. Sit down and try to do everything you can to have a conversation with those people who don't agree with you. I love my friend Senator Hobart, and his advice is great, to advocate for those who would agree with you first, but our difficulty is reaching out to those who don't clearly understand why it is they're arguing. Thank you all very much.
So one more time, give us a big hand for everybody who's spoken. Now I get to preach a little bit, but I want to tell you that back in this corner are my friends from the Convention of States. They've come from several different counties to stand back there, so spend some time and talk to them before you leave today. Okay? I thank you all for showing up. I guess it's left to me to curse a little bit, so I'm just going to ask some questions, right? Are we going to let the Democrats continue to attack this president? Hell no. Not no. Not no. Hell no. I didn't hear you. What are we going to go down the road of communism instead of freedom? I mean, here's the worst part about it, okay? They say they're for women's rights, they say they're for children's rights. They want to give the ability to kill the baby on the table after it's born. That's not abortion, that's not anything but murder. Okay? We have to stand up for this. We have to stand up for our rights. We have to stand up for our country. We have to stand up for the children in this country. I want you guys to join this team. I want you on our team. Please take time to volunteer. Please help us with the food drive. Please help us adopt these families up in the Grand Valley. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks at the lunch. Thank you all for coming. God bless America and God bless you all.